that a lot of the problems that we've been discussing about informative identities and how there can be meaning without reference in the case of a name, that these problems are still alive and well today. They are still hard problems. Where we left things last time was that Russell, it seems to me, has a very strong case for saying that there has got to be a class of names that are not equivalent to descriptions, a class of names which are more basic than descriptions. Descriptions being how many phrases. There have to be truly singular statements of the form Sally is tall, that really just identify the objects by using names. But then we have to ask how those basic names would work if they're not equivalent to descriptions. And Russell's answer was that these are names for your own sense data, and that's where language begins. That's the basic connect between language and reality, with signs for your own sense data, and everything else that we talk about is built up from that basis. Now the great thing about that is that it does give you an account of how there can be proper names that are not equivalent to descriptions, that are more basic than descriptions, and you do get an account of how the problem of informative identities is solved, because there aren't any true informative identities for these basic names, and you don't have any problem of meaning without reference, because if you think you're referring to one of your own sense data, then you are, because there isn't any more to your sense data than you thinking that they're there. The trouble is that it leaves us each trapped in the world of our own sense data, unable really to understand the language that other people are using. What happens in Kripke is that Kripke gives an argument for saying that ordinary proper names, names like Aristotle, Homer, Schwarzenegger, Bill Clinton, ordinary proper names can't be equivalent to definite descriptions. So in effect, what Kripke's argument does is, it really kind of completes Russell's case. It shows you that names can't be equivalent to descriptions, but what he's showing you is that the ordinary names, the names like Homer and Aristotle and so on, can't be equivalent to descriptions. That the real names, the place where it all begins, are actually what we ordinarily call names, names for concrete objects, not names for your own sense data. Okay, that's where we've got to and where we're going. Are we happy with that? Okay, let's see what happens. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to track through one main line of argument in the selections from Naming and Necessity in the Reader. This is, I think, the argument that's hardest to get in that selection, and I'll try and lay that out as plainly and directly as I can. And next time we look at Kripke's positive account of how proper names do work. So what he's arguing here in the stuff we're going to look at today is that names are not equivalent to descriptions. The way that ordinary proper names work in language is quite different to the way descriptions work. So I want to start out with a distinction between two kinds of possibility: epistemic possibility, metaphysical possibility. Okay, two new friends. Okay, so one kind of possibility, sometimes when you talk about what's possible, what could have happened, what might be going on, what you're talking about is relative to your current knowledge. If we're looking for the room the class is in, if you're walking down the corridor, we can't remember what room the class is in, and I'm saying, well, it might be this room. What I mean is, for all I know, it could be this room, right? That's relative to my current knowledge. My current knowledge is consistent with it being this room. If I say it's definitely not that room, I mean my current knowledge rules out it being that room. Whereas sometimes when you talk about what's possible, what you're talking about is not at all relative to your current knowledge. What you mean is just, it could have happened this way. Maybe you know perfectly well it didn't, but it could have happened this way. So if we're looking at some swish, air-conditioned, well-upholstered room, we could be looking in there saying our class could have been in there, it might have been in there, but it's not that we're under some impression that it maybe is really, if you see what I mean. We know perfectly well it isn't, but what we're talking about is something about the thing itself. It could have taken our class. Okay, I mean, suppose I come in pale and shaking, and I seize on you, and I say, when you were driving up to campus, you nearly knocked me off my bike. You practically touched me, you scoundrel. Now, when I say that, it's not that I'm having some kind of one scenario is I'm having some kind of brainstorm, and I think, maybe you did actually knock me off my bike. You see what I mean? And I'm saying, maybe you didn't. I just don't know whether you did or not, but you might have, for all I know. But that's not what you usually mean in that kind of case. What you mean is, you came so close to me that it could easily have happened that I was swept off my bike. I know perfectly well it didn't happen, but it could easily have happened. Okay, what kind of possibility is that? Does that relate to what will happen so far as I know, or does that relate to the way things are in themselves? It could have gone this way, or it could have gone that way. Is it epistemic or metaphysical? Who thinks it's epistemic? Okay, who thinks it's metaphysical? Very good, that's often the majority are right, I'm afraid. Okay, so that is metaphysical. It doesn't have to do with what's going on so far as I know. It just has to do with what, given the way the world was, could have happened. So it doesn't have to do with what might be so, given our current knowledge. It just has to do with what could have happened, as you might put it, in some other possible world. Yep?
This is metaphysical possibility distinct from logical.
You think that, I think logical possibility is a form of metaphysical possibility. It's one of the instances of metaphysical possibility. What I mean is, suppose you and I are mathematicians, and we're let's say, trying to add up two very large numbers, the way real mathematicians do, right? And we've got two very large numbers, and we're saying, well, what's the answer? And you say, well, it might be 99 million. Right, well, what you mean there is, so far as we know, it could be 99 million. We haven't done the sum yet, right? But of course, if the right answer is 99 million, then it's necessary that it's 99 million. And it's metaphysically impossible. It could be anything other than 99 million. Yeah? So if 2 plus 2 is 4, then that's a logical, it's an impossibility that 2 plus 2 could be anything else. But that has to do with the way things are in themselves. Yeah, not anything to do with our common knowledge. Yeah. Anything else about kinds of possibility? Well, let me give some more examples. Suppose that there's a murder investigation underway. Someone's just been murdered, the police are trying to figure out who did it, and they look at one suspect, they say, he could be our man. What they mean there is, so far as all our evidence goes, he was in the building at the right time, he had a motive, he had a weapon, could be him. Epistemic or metaphysical? Very good. It has to do with what might be so, given your current knowledge. Suppose you take the design of a nuclear reactor, or fireproofing a room in a campus building, something like that. There you're talking about risk, right? If someone looks at a nuclear reactor and says, this could have blown at any point during the last 20 years, I mean, that's a real point about someone's negligence. that reactor could easily have blown at any point during the last 20 years. That was really dangerous. So safety and risk have to do with, it's not that we think it did blow, for all we know. That's not what you're saying. It's, look at the way the thing is constructed. It could easily have happened. There's a possible world where it does blow. So that's metaphysical, yep. And notice that metaphysical possibility there really matters. You could sue the manufacturers of the nuclear plant for their negligence there, because it was metaphysically extremely easy for it to have happened that it did blow, even if it didn't. If someone put your children at risk, you could sue them for that. That's a metaphysical possibility, not something that did happen, but it could easily have happened. Okay, so in general, this is, the two kinds of possibility are associated with different emotions. If you fear or apprehension or hope, that's to do with what might be happening so far as you know. If you're waiting for your exam results to come out and you're experiencing one after the other, fear, apprehension, and hope, then those emotions have to do with what grade you will be getting for all you know. It's consistent with what you know could be one grade, it's consistent with what you know could be another grade. You run through those kind of emotions in relation to epistemic possibility. On the other hand, if you have regret or relief, anger, wistfulness, these usually have to do with metaphysical possibility. If late at night I say to you in a maudlin way, I could have married Jane, you know, then everything would have been all right. It's not that I'm thinking, actually maybe I did marry Jane. Do you see what I mean? What I'm thinking about there is what happens in some alternate track of the universe, and I'm saying that could really have happened, that one. Okay? So there the wistfulness or regret have to do with the metaphysical possibility, not with the epistemic possibility. Okay. In general, it's very convenient to represent metaphysical possibility using round blue circles. This is something you must never write down, but everyone who works on these topics has some picture like this in their head. Right? There are lots and lots of possible worlds. Right? Lots of ways things could have been. There's a possible world where I marry Jane. There's a possible world where you knocked me off my bike. Right? There's a possible world where Al Gore was elected president in 2001. All these different possible worlds. As you can see, there are lots of them. Right? How many are there? Many. Right? Infinitely many, I guess. Yeah, this is just a small selection you're getting here. And as you can see, one of them is actual. Right? One of them is designated the actual world, that's the world we're in. But there are all these other possible worlds. As you can also see, some of them are closer than others. What I mean is, when I say some of them are closer than others is, if I say, you nearly knocked me off my bike, what I mean is something like, the world in which you knocked me off my bike is really close. If you say, don't be ridiculous, I was at least 2 yards away from you the whole time, you nincompoop. What is all the fuss about? You're not denying that it's metaphysically possible that you could have knocked me off my bike. And there is that possible world, there's no contradiction in it. There is a history of the world in which you do knock me off my bike. But what you're saying is, that world is very far away. It couldn't easily have happened that you knocked me off my bike. Okay, so that's metaphysical possibilities in contrast to epistemic possibilities. And necessary, as people usually use it, as Kripke uses it in naming necessity. Necessary, when you say a proposition is necessary, when you say, it is necessary that 2 plus 2 is 4, is necessary that bachelors are male, what you mean is something like, a necessary proposition is true in every single possible world. There isn't so much as one possible world where it isn't true. If something is true in all possible worlds, is it going to be a priori? That's to say, will you know that it's true just by thinking about it? Yep.
It could be, but it doesn't have to be.
So it could be what, but it doesn't have to be. It could be a priori, but it doesn't have to be.
Like I could know, I could know it a priori, but I don't have to know it. It's just a possibility.
Oh, you might not be able. You might not actually figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely true. You might not do the work. It might be a priori, but you might not figure it out. It'll still be a priori in the sense that you could figure it out if you just did the work. Is that right? Are you completely comfortable with that? What you just said? Okay. Okay, so if it's necessarily true in every metaphysically possible world, then it's got to be a priori. And in a way, when you think about it, that's very intuitive, because when you think if it's not a priori, that means you've got to look to see. So if you've got to look to see, that's to say, you're trying to figure out what's going on in the actual world. That's what your eyes tell you about the actual world, right? So you've got to look to see, because you've got to figure out which one's the actual one to figure out whether it's true. But if it's true in every possible world, it doesn't matter which one's the actual world. You can tell this by thinking about it. It's got to be true. It's always true. Okay, so necessary and a priori must be connected. Yep.
If you for every possible world, if every world can include every possible scenario,
Yep.
you come up with the fact that as we go about the world, you can just imagine an additional world in which the opposite would be true.
Sure, but suppose there is another possible world in which the opposite is true, right? Then it's not necessary. Yeah. So, and the question is only if it is necessary, true in every single possible world, isn't it going to be a priori, and that you could figure it out just by thinking about it? Well, if you take 2 plus 2 is 4, a very trivial example. Take 2 plus 2 is 4. That's going to be necessary, true in every possible world. Right? You don't have to look to see whether 2 plus 2 is 4 either. You can just figure it out. So it's necessary, but it's a priori too. And you might say, well, I can think of a world where 2 plus 2 is not 4, right? I don't want to quarrel with you about that. Suppose that's right. Suppose there is a world in which 2 plus 2 is not 4. Then you can't know a priori that 2 plus 2 is not 4, because you don't know whether this is that world, right? But it's not necessary either. You see what I mean? Okay, come back if you, yeah.
So it sounds like there's no constraints on what is considered a realm of metaphysical possibility, right? Because we're excluding those realms in which we can say any number of absurdities that could possibly be true, but the fact that we're thinking about them doesn't make them a metaphysical possibility, right?
The fact that we're thinking about them doesn't make them a metaphysical possibility. Yeah, I mean, it depends exactly how absurd you mean. But if you mean something like, he's tall and he's not tall, yeah, that's an absurdity. Yeah, you can think about it, he's tall and he's not tall. You can think about it in the sense that, it's not like I just said, a wop, bop, a loo, bop, a lop, bam, boom. You know what I mean? If I say, he's tall and he's not tall, it actually, there is some kind of meaning to that. And in that sense, I can think about it. But there's not a metaphysically possible world in which he's tall and he's not tall. It's absurd in that sense. Yeah. Yeah.
How do we decide what's metaphysically possible?
How do we decide?
Is it something that people
Have
have to agree upon?
to agree upon? Yeah. That's a very good question. I mean, how would you decide? I mean, the last question I said, well, maybe 2 plus 2 is not 4. Yeah. How do you figure that out? By imagining it? You can imagine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a possibility.
Right.
Except it seems like excluding that sort of case.
Yeah, I think I was excluding that kind of case, and maybe it's a mistake. There is a hard question there, what's possible and what's not. How do you know what's possible and what's not? I think the guide we actually use is what we can imagine. And I don't think it's as easy as you might think to imagine 2 plus 2 being 8. What would 2 plus 3 be? Do you see what I mean? What would you get if you subtracted 2 from it? There are lots of things that at first it seems you can imagine them, and then you think, well, actually, I have no idea what's going on here. Yeah. Yeah.
So in response to that, you said that if we use our imagination as sort of a guide of what can be possible, there are cases in this universe where there are things we can imagine, such as the four-dimensional space. It's like concepts that are understood through abstract mathematics, which
Yeah.
physical evidence shows it does actually exist. We can't possibly imagine
Right.
A four-dimensional space.
Yeah, but we need to be really careful though. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I was listening to a mathematician the other day telling us that the world is actually an 11-dimensional football. I mean, apparently, if you think of all these hexagonal panels that footballs have, that's very like the 11-dimensional. I have no idea what he's talking about, but apparently the world really is an 11-dimensional football, right? Now, your point is you can't visualize that. Yeah. Now that's not only possible; that's the actual world, right? So that really is possible. That's very possible. So when I said imagination, it mustn't be something like visualization. There are plenty of things going on that we might not be able to visualize. It's something like what you can coherently conceive. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Yep.
And I think along those lines, to figure out how an example like 2 plus 2 equals 8 is different from the 11-dimensional space.
Right.
To think that 2 plus 2 equals 8 is a contradiction of those terms.
Right.
They don't relate that way. It's
Yeah.
both impossible to conceive them as such, and impossible to think that.
Yeah, what you can conceive what you can coherently conceive, something like that. Yeah. Yeah. If you get something's a contradiction, then I guess it's not possible that it's true. Yeah. So you get a contradiction, you think something that's definitely wrong. Yeah. Okay, I want to put that on hold just for a second because in a bit later we'll see that something about one way of approaching these questions. Yeah. Anything else for the moment on epistemic and metaphysical possibility? Are you comfortable with that? Here's one last example. If you've been thinking this whole time, my God, I wish I'd taken astrophysics, then I wouldn't have to be grinding through this stuff in theory of meaning. You might be wistfully thinking about astrophysics, but if you're thinking that, it's not that you're under the impression that maybe you have taken astrophysics after all. Do you see what I mean? The whole poignancy of the situation is that it's very clear to you that you didn't. Right? So that is a metaphysical possibility. You could have taken astrophysics. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question. How does this distinction relate to quantum? I actually don't know very much about quantum theory, but it
Yeah.
seems that in the classical case of Schrödinger's cat, there is no difference between the epistemic possibility and the metaphysical possibility of whether the cat is dead or alive.
Right. Right. I'm not going to try to resolve Schrödinger's cat. Right. But you're right. When your thinking is informed by physical theory, yeah, then the physical theory is informing your sense of what you're going to regard as conceivable or not. Yeah. What you say is metaphysically possible can be instructed by a grasp of physics, by a grasp of how things are. And we're going to give a much simpler example of this in a second.
Okay.
Yeah. Ways in which your knowledge of how the world is can affect your knowledge of what could be happening. Yeah, metaphysical. That's one I mentioned.
This one hurts. I don't major in it.
Can you do that after class? Okay. Okay. So we're comfortable with that? These two kinds of possibility? Okay. Okay, so counterfactuals. Counterfactuals are just statements like, if Germany had won the Second World War, then I don't know what would have happened. Life would be very different. If Al Gore had been the president of the US in 2001, then I don't know, would there have been a war in Iraq? What would have happened? Historians talk about this kind of thing the whole time. What would have happened if? Yeah. When you reproach people in everyday life, when you say, if only you'd have got here on time, then everything would have been all right. I was once watching a basketball game on a big screen, and the commentator's voiceover for the game consisted entirely of counterfactuals. If he hadn't let go of the ball there, then Zablinski would have been right on top of him. You know the kind of thing. I mean, counterfactuals we use the whole time. Okay. But what's going on when you talk about it, when you use a counterfactual? You see why it's called a counterfactual? Because we all know that Germany did not win the Second World War, and you're saying contrary to fact, what would have happened if they had? The whole poignancy is that we know perfectly well Al Gore was not the president in 2001. But we're saying, suppose contrary to fact, what would have happened then? Now, when we're talking about these counterfactuals, we're talking about what is going on in some metaphysically possible world. In terms of this kind of diagram, you're saying, here's the world in which Al Gore is president in 2001. What's going on here? Here's the world where Germany did win the Second World War. What's going on here? Here's the world in which you did get here on time. What happened there? Yep. So counterfactuals, the way they usually use them, have to do with metaphysical possibility. They're saying, consider what would have happened if, and then you talk about some other possibility than the actual one. Okay? So when you talk about the world in which Al Gore was the president of the US in 2001, then what you're doing is you're describing a world, a possible history, and you're saying what goes on there. Okay? I don't say this is some deep insight. This is just a way of, a little bit of analysis of what we're talking about when we talk about what would have happened if. Okay. So we're saying that consider if some nearby world, it could easily have happened after all, that Gore was president, and then if everything else had been minimally different, what would have gone on? And of course, there are worlds out here in which Gore was president in 2001, but it's also true that Germany won the Second World War and that the US is entirely under German domination, right? Or, I don't know, even further remote possibilities. But we just want to know, consider everything being pretty much the way it is, except Gore won in 2001.